I'll tell you, two people who have not had any chance to relax at all today are Sam Donaldson and Lisa Stark, who've been monitoring Y2K and aviation for us in Washington. So we're going to go first to Sam, who's at Y2K headquarters in New York. Sam, you've had a long day, but sort of a foolproof day. Everything seems to have worked out about everywhere.
Well, Peter, it's like the firefighters are sitting around the station house and playing a pinochle, waiting for the bell to ring. It never rings. On the other hand, you're exactly right. That's the best outcome. I mean, does the phrase, no news is good news, resonate so loudly? Every place that they've checked here at the Information Center in Washington, beginning with New Zealand, ending now with New York, Washington, the Eastern Seacoast, everything's fine. Russia might have been a problem. Russia is not a problem. China might have been, not China a problem. Italy, they said the Italians started late. They held their first meeting last September on Y2K. So watch out for Italy. Italy just fine. And that's the way it should have been. The federal government spent $8.5 billion. They estimate about $100 billion, Peter, spent by private industry in this country. So if people say, well, was this a hoax? Was this a hype? No, probably we're going to find out there was a real problem there, but they got it fixed. And this may be one of the great success stories of how, yes, indeed, people can fix a problem once they identify it.
I remember, Sam, when we started reporting on this about 1.5 years ago, and we assigned Jimmy Walker to it, who spent much of the day in New Zealand, and nobody thought we were hyping it then. Recently, they thought we were hyping them, but it may have been all the reporting through the year that made people much more conscientious about Y2K potential than they might otherwise have been.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, it's not over yet. Everyone cautions that when business opens on Monday morning, we're probably going to find some businesses, hope they're not many, that have a problem. And you may have a problem with your billing. You may have a problem with some device. And this may go on for several months because the real experts, Peter, tell me that these chips and the degrading of the chips, if all the systems aren't working properly, can turn up, say, next June. But everybody here, beginning with John Koskinen, who is, of course, the Y2K czar, who brought in a cake a while ago. No champagne, cheap. Well, anyway, he brought in a cake. Everyone here is delighted and know that they've dodged a bullet. They are prepared, though, as I suggest, for people to now say, well, there wasn't a problem after all. But I think that's a little short-sighted. I mean, if we dodged a bullet, to examine how many bullets were out there seems to me to be a futile exercise.
In the broader sense, too, Sam, though, everybody worked very hard, I think, everywhere in the world, as best we can tell, with some exceptions, Ukraine being one, worked very hard at trying to avoid a Y2K problem. The general public seemed to be very casual. There was no rush, for example, on ATM machines anywhere in the country.
Absolutely. The reports here are that today, for instance, the one day you would expect if people had delayed and said, well, I've got to get gasoline, I've got to get food, I've got to lay in a water supply, didn't happen. In fact, it was sort of normal for a long weekend, as this is, and no more. Now, the one place, interestingly enough, around the world where the public reacted with some alarm was Japan. The Japanese apparently laid in 50% more bottled water than they normally do. Stoves, cook stoves. They took to heart the idea that their infrastructure might go down. But of course, they didn't go down either.
For a very good reason in Japan, Sam, because the Japanese government warned people to take care. The Japanese government warned people to put in extra supplies, warned them to take in water, warned them that this might be a very dangerous moment for them in this astonishing technological nation.
Well, that's true, but of course, we were warned also. Now, I think you're right. We were warned, the American public, and yet we were also told at the same time it's going to be okay. Because the government reports, the last one came, just a few days ago in the reports from the White House, finally came to the point of saying it's going to be all right. There aren't going to be any great dislocations. And so far, of course, those reports are correct. Now, as I said earlier, Peter, they're taking precautions. For instance, there are two major pipelines that ship oil from the Texas area to New York and Chicago. And they're shut down at this moment, one for 20 hours, one for 8 hours, while they check all of the systems that boost that oil. Now, there's not a shortage of oil, so don't be alarmed. You're not going to freeze tonight or tomorrow night or the next night. But those things, all the banks were required to back up all of the data. Your bank account has been backed up on a floppy someplace or its equivalent in case something went wrong there.
Well,
so
Sam,
the precautions were there, but apparently not necessary.
Sam, thank you very much. You proved again today how well you know your story. Thank you very much. Hope you get some sleep. Sam Donaldson reporting to us from Y2K headquarters in Washington. Now, the one other question in terms of technology in this regard is whether or not there have been any troubles in flight. You heard us say earlier that the leadership of the Communist Party in China made its airline officials be in the air at midnight of their time to prove that the airlines there were safe. We're going to go to Herndon, Virginia again now, where ABC's Lisa Stark, who covers aviation for us, has been monitoring the FAA all day long. So, what's the story?
The story is, Peter, that there is no story, and they're happy to report that. A big cheer went up here just after midnight, celebrating the new year, but more importantly, celebrating that all systems are go. No major problems to report, not only in the United States, but in fact, throughout the world. Sam had talked earlier about countries that got started late dealing with the Y2K problems. There were concerns about the air traffic control systems in those countries, but there have been no problems reported at airports, with airlines, or in any of those systems, and they're just hoping that good news holds throughout the next few days. And just to let you know, by the way, there are about 500 planes right now up in the air over the United States.
Thanks very much, Lisa. Also, a very long day for you, Lisa Stark, who covers aviation for us in Herndon, Virginia. And by the way, tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, Sam Donaldson's not going to get an awful lot of sleep. But for those of you around the country who have been doing other things today and have missed some of these extraordinary moments as we have traveled around the world, there's going to be a full review on ABC from 8 till 11 tomorrow morning Eastern Standard Time. Check your local listings, listen to the television set, whatever. But Sam will be back with the highlights of this quite extraordinary day in time. We'll be back in just a minute.
This is ABC 2000, the celebration of the millennium. Brought to you by Cadillac, the power of and the fusion of design and technology. And by AccuView contact lenses, vision for the new millennium.